It was a Sunday morning, the kind where you're supposed to smell coffee and pancakes, not hear your sister's voice breaking through the walls like a siren. I was half asleep when my phone buzzed off the nightstand. 6 missed calls from Jess, Bridezilla, her contact name, not hers. 3 texts in all caps. We need to talk. Now. Where are you? Unbelievable. When I agreed to be Jess's maid of honor last year, I pictured the movies. Champagne toasts, late-night Pinterest scrolling, maybe even one of those heartfelt moments where we'd cry over how far we'd come as sisters. We've had our ups and downs. Okay, mostly downs, but I thought this was a chance to finally be close. That fantasy lasted about 3 weeks. The first fight was over the bridesmaids' dresses. She wanted a champagne satin gown that looked gorgeous on the model, but turned the rest of us into walking sausage casings. I suggested something similar, but in a softer fabric, and she looked at me like I'd suggested showing up naked. You're the maid of honor. Your job is to support, not undermine. She snapped in front of the whole group chat. I let it slide. I let a lot of things slide. The last straw, though, wasn't about a dress. It wasn't even about the wedding. It was about a secret, one she thought I would carry to my grave. But here's the thing about graves. Sometimes you trip and fall into them before you're ready. That Sunday morning, when I finally called her back, Jess answered before the first ring finished. Are you seriously ignoring me? She shouted. Good morning to you too, I said, pulling the blanket around my shoulders. Don't do that, she snapped. Don't be smug. You know exactly why I'm calling. I didn't. Or at least I thought I didn't. Until she said, you need to tell Mom and Dad that you're lying. Right now. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd swallowed a stone. Jess, I said slowly, I haven't told them anything. She let out this laugh, short, sharp, like it hurt her throat. Oh, really? Then how come they suddenly think Ben isn't good enough for me? How come they're asking questions about his past? Ben, her fiancé, the guy I'd never liked but tolerated for her sake. The guy who, 3 weeks ago, I caught doing something that made my skin crawl. She was right about one thing. I hadn't told Mom and Dad. But someone had to. And that's when it hit me. She thought I was the one who started this. I almost told her everything right there. But before I could, she threw the final punch. If you can't fix this, you can't be my maid of honor. Simple as that. She hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, heart pounding in my ears. The wedding was 6 weeks away. My dress was already fitted. My speech was half written. And now she was threatening to kick me out, when the truth was, I'd already decided I couldn't stand next to her while she married him. Because if she knew what I knew about Ben, she wouldn't marry him at all. The first time I met Ben, he shook my hand like he was afraid of catching something. We were at a barbecue at my parents' place. Jess was glowing in that early relationship way. And he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He didn't ask me anything about myself, didn't even bother pretending to care. I told myself he was just shy. Fast forward 2 years, and I'd learned he wasn't shy. He was just the kind of guy who only turned on the charm when it served him. 3 weeks before that Sunday morning meltdown, I'd been at the grocery store picking up snacks for a movie night with my friend Tasha. I was standing in the self-checkout line when I saw him. Ben. Except, he wasn't alone. He had his arm around a woman who definitely wasn't Jess. She was tall, dark-haired, dressed in one of those bodycon dresses that scream, date night. And the way they were looking at each other? It wasn't coworker or old friend territory. It was intimate. I ducked behind a magazine rack like some kind of bad spy movie extra, heart thudding so hard it felt like it was in my throat. I told myself maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was harmless, until I saw him tuck a strand of her hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her jaw. I wish I could say I confronted him right then. But I froze. He didn't see me. They paid for their stuff. Wine, strawberries, whipped cream, seriously. And left. That night, I barely slept. I kept seeing Jess's face when she talked about him, how excited she was about the wedding, about their perfect honeymoon in Italy. I didn't want to be the one to shatter that. But I also couldn't stomach the idea of her finding out after the vows. The next day, I told myself I'd talk to him first. Give him a chance to come clean. I found his number in our old group chat and texted him. We need to talk. Alone. Urgent. He replied an hour later. Busy. What about? When I told him I'd seen him at the store, there was a long pause. Then, don't tell Jess. You don't understand. I called him. He didn't pick up. Instead, He sent another text. If you love your sister, keep this to yourself. You'll just hurt her for no reason. That was the moment something in me hardened. I wasn't going to lie for him. I wasn't going to stand there in some champagne-colored dress, smiling for pictures, knowing the man she married had a whole other life going on. But before I could figure out how to tell her, things started to shift. Subtle things. Mom making comments about how every couple has their issues. Dad asking if Jess and Ben had signed a prenup yet. Jess getting defensive out of nowhere, snapping if anyone so much as hinted at Ben not being perfect. It felt like everyone knew something was wrong, but no one was saying it out loud. Which brought me back to that Sunday morning. She thought I had told them. She thought I'd gone behind her back. After she hung up, I sat there staring at my coffee, trying to decide whether to call her back or just let it blow over. But then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mom. "Sweetheart," she said, in that careful voice she uses when she's trying not to upset me. "I think you and Jess need to work this out before the rehearsal dinner." She's really upset. I opened my mouth to say I hadn't told them anything. But Mom kept talking. She says you've been trying to sabotage her wedding. I almost laughed. It was so far from the truth it felt ridiculous. But then Mom said something that froze me in place. "And honestly, if you have doubts about Ben, maybe you should speak now, before it's too late." Her tone was different. Not confrontational. Not angry. Almost hopeful. That was when I realized, maybe Mom did want to know. Maybe she'd already seen cracks in the facade. But before I could answer, there was a knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, Ben was standing there. I didn't invite him in. He just stepped past me like my apartment was his. "Ben," I started, but he shut the door behind him with a little more force than necessary. He was wearing that same smug half-smile I'd seen at family dinners. The one he uses when he thinks he's in control. "We need to clear something up," he said, like we were business partners and I'd messed up a deal. I crossed my arms. "You showing up unannounced is not a great start." He ignored that. "Jess told me you've been running your mouth. To your parents. To God knows who else." "I haven't," I said, keeping my voice even. "But maybe I should." His jaw tightened just slightly, but the smile stayed. "You think you're protecting her? You're not. You're going to ruin everything she's worked for. Everything we've built." I couldn't help it. I laughed. It wasn't even funny, but the sheer arrogance of it. "You've built a relationship on lies, Ben. You're the one who's ruining it." He stepped closer. Not close enough to touch me, but close enough that I could smell his cologne. Sharp, chemical, too expensive for what he does for a living. "You don't know what you saw," he said quietly. "You don't know anything about her. That woman, she's nothing. A friend. A mistake. But if you tell Jess, you'll destroy her. She's not as strong as you think." There it was. The guilt trip. Except, here's the thing. Jess is strong. She's loud and stubborn and dramatic. But she's survived worse than this. She just doesn't know it yet. I stepped around him, opened the door. "Leave." He didn't move. "Ben," I said, keeping my hand on the doorknob. "If you think you can scare me into silence, you've got the wrong sister." That finally broke the smile. His expression flickered. Anger, then something darker, something like calculation. "You know," he said slowly, "you've always been jealous of Jess. The smart one, the pretty one, the one everyone actually likes. Maybe this is just your way of taking her down a notch." That one hit, even though I hated myself for letting it. Jess has always been the golden child. I've always been the responsible one, the steady one. Which is a nice way of saying I'm boring. But I didn't answer him. I just pointed to the hallway. He finally left, but not before leaning in and saying, "If you tell her, it'll be your word against mine. And she'll choose me." When the door clicked shut, I stood there for a long minute, my pulse hammering in my ears. My first thought was that I needed to warn Jess. My second was, maybe I should wait. Because if I told her now, she'd just run straight to him, and he'd spin it into some misunderstanding. I'd be the bitter sister who can't stand to see her happy. I needed proof. The next few days, I turned into a low-budget detective. I started checking his social media, looking for tags, location check-ins. I even made a fake profile to follow the woman from the grocery store. Her name was Laura. She was a bartender downtown, and her feed was basically a highlight reel of expensive nights out. On Thursday night, she posted a photo of 2 glasses of wine on a rooftop bar, and in the reflection of the glass, you could see Ben's watch. The one Jess bought him for his birthday. I screenshotted it. My hands were shaking, but I finally felt like I had something solid. The plan was simple. Meet Jess for brunch on Saturday, show her the picture, and explain everything. But Friday night, she texted me. Need to talk before brunch. Come over tonight. I almost didn't go, but curiosity and the hope that maybe she'd already figured it out won. When I walked into her apartment, she was sitting on the couch in her pajamas, hair in a messy bun, eyes puffy. She looked tired. Not angry, not smug. Just tired. She didn't even say hi. She just handed me her phone. It was open to a text thread. With Ben. The last message from him read, "If your sister doesn't back off, I'll tell her what you did." I just stared at the screen. The words didn't make sense at first. What you did. Like it was a placeholder in some bad soap opera script. Jess had pulled her knees up to her chest, her oversized sweatshirt swallowing her whole. She wasn't crying yet, but her eyes had that glassy, unfocused look, like she'd been holding back for hours. What is this?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter than I expected. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached over to the coffee table, grabbed the half-empty mug of tea, and took a long sip like she needed it for courage. "I didn't tell you everything," she finally said. "About what?" "About me and Ben. About before we got engaged." She set the mug down and started picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "We broke up for a while. Almost 6 months. We weren't even talking." I blinked. "You never told me that." She gave this humorless little laugh. "Yeah, I didn't tell anyone. Because I was embarrassed." She took a breath, but didn't look at me. "We broke up because I cheated. Once. It was stupid and impulsive, and I regretted it immediately. But he found out, and we ended it. And then, I don't know. We found our way back. He said he forgave me." My stomach was doing somersaults. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not because she'd cheated, but because now I understood. Now the text made sense. "That's what he's holding over you?" I asked. She nodded. "He never brings it up, except when he wants me to do something I don't want to do. It's like this shadow. I know it's wrong, but part of me feels like I owe him. Like I don't get to complain if he screws up, because I did it first." "Jess," I said, leaning forward, "that's not how this works. Forgiveness doesn't mean someone gets to use it as a weapon forever." She laughed again, sharper this time. "Easy for you to say. You've never screwed up like that. You've never had something hanging over you." I wanted to tell her about Laura, about the rooftop bar picture, but the words got stuck. Because looking at her, curled up, defeated, I knew she wouldn't hear it. "Not tonight. Is that why you thought I told Mom and Dad something?" I asked. Her shoulders sagged. "Yeah, because if they knew, if anyone knew, it would destroy everything. And Ben's been edgy lately. Like he's waiting for something to drop. I figured maybe you." "I didn't," I said quickly. "I haven't said a word." "But Jess," I hesitated. "Are you sure this is the guy you want to marry?" She looked at me then, and the expression on her face was complicated. Fear, love, defiance. "It doesn't matter if I'm sure," she said softly. "The invitations are out. The deposits are paid. The dress is hanging in my closet. It's too late to start over." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her it's never too late. But she changed the subject, asked me about the bridal shower next weekend, as if she could will the conversation into something lighter. I left her apartment that night with a knot in my stomach and the photo of Ben's watch still sitting in my phone. I told myself I'd wait. Just a little longer. Maybe she'd see it herself. But the next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Mom and a single voicemail that made my blood run cold. Her voice was low, urgent. "Sweetheart, we need to talk. Your father just spoke to Ben, and I don't like what he's saying about you." I didn't even brush my teeth before calling Mom back. She answered on the first ring. "I'm glad you called. I didn't want to leave that on a message." "What did he say?" I asked, pacing my kitchen. Mom hesitated. "He said he's worried about you." That made me stop cold. "Worried about me?" "Apparently," she said carefully, "you've been struggling. And you've been trying to project that onto Jess and him. He said you've been making things up to sabotage their relationship because you're jealous." I closed my eyes. Of course. Classic Ben. "Mom, that's not all," she cut in. "He said you've threatened him. That you told him you'd ruin the wedding if he didn't." "I don't know, step aside. I told your father that doesn't sound like you. But you have to admit, this isn't looking good." I couldn't even breathe for a second. "Mom, he's lying. He's trying to make me look unstable because I know something he doesn't want Jess to know." "What do you know?" she asked, her voice sharpening. I froze. Because here it was, the moment I could just tell her about Laura, about the rooftop photo. But if I did, Jess's cheating would come out too. And that wasn't my story to tell. Mom, it's complicated, I said finally. She sighed heavily. Sweetheart, if you're not going to be honest with me, I can't help you. And right now, Jess believes him. She says she doesn't want you as her maid of honor anymore. The words hit harder than I expected. I knew it was coming. I'd been bracing for it since that Sunday, but hearing it out loud still stung. She can't be serious, I said, my voice cracking. She's serious, Mom said quietly. And, honestly, I think you should step back. Let the wedding happen. If there's a problem in their marriage, it'll come out eventually. But right now, all you're doing is making yourself the villain. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. The rest of that day was a blur. My phone lit up every hour with texts from bridesmaids asking what happened, distant cousins sending sorry to hear about the drama, messages like I'd just been cut from a reality TV show. By evening, I was sitting on my couch, the dress bag for the maid of honor gown hanging in the corner like some taunting ghost. That's when I got a text from an unknown number. We should talk. I think you're right about him. There was a name at the bottom. Laura. The message sat there on my phone like a live wire. I read it 3 times, half expecting it to vanish or for the name to somehow change into spam likely. But it didn't. It was her. I'd gone out of my way to keep tabs on Laura without actually contacting her. I wasn't sure if it was out of fear of what she might say or fear of confirming what I already suspected. Now she was reaching out to me. I typed and deleted my reply 3 times before settling on. When and where? She responded almost instantly. The Brew Loft. Upstairs. 11 a.m. tomorrow. The Brew Loft was one of those overpriced coffee shops with exposed brick walls, dangling Edison bulbs, and oat milk everything. I'd been there a few times for work meetings, but I'd never imagined I'd be walking in to have a clandestine meeting about my sister's fiancé. The next morning, I showed up 15 minutes early because there was no way I was letting her be the one waiting for me. My stomach was already in knots. The coffee I ordered didn't help. At exactly 11 o'clock, Laura walked in. She looked different than she had in the grocery store. That night, she'd been in full date night mode. High heels, smoky eyeliner, and a dress you couldn't sit down in without a strategy. Today, she was in jeans, a gray sweater, and sneakers. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup except maybe mascara. And yet, she was still effortlessly beautiful in that way that made me feel like I was sitting in the wrong genre of movie. She spotted me right away and walked over, sliding into the chair across from me. You're Jess's sister, she said, not as a question. I am. I replied, my voice a little sharper than intended. She studied me for a moment before saying, I think we both know why we're here. I leaned back. Why don't you tell me? Laura let out a short, humorless laugh. Fair enough. I'm not going to pretend I didn't know about Jess. I did. I just didn't think it was serious between them when Ben and I started seeing each other again. Again? I interrupted. So this isn't new? Her eyes flicked down to her coffee, then back to me. We dated a couple years ago. It ended badly. He cheated on me, if you can believe it. I moved on. Or, I thought I did. Then we ran into each other last spring. He told me he was in an off phase with Jess, that it wasn't working out. I didn't tell her about Jess's confession. That wasn't my secret to spill. I tried to stay away, she continued. But you know how it is when someone says all the right things. And for a while, it felt real again. He made it sound like Jess was controlling, dramatic, that she didn't really care about him. He made me believe I was rescuing him from a bad relationship. I stared at her. So why the sudden change of heart? Laura took a deep breath. Because last week, he told me he was marrying her no matter what. That she had things to lose and wouldn't walk away. And then, she hesitated. He said something that didn't sit right. He said, she owes me. My hands curled into fists under the table. I didn't need her to explain what that meant. I already knew. He's been using her mistake against her, I said quietly. Laura's brows furrowed. What mistake? I shook my head. Not mine to tell. For the first time, Laura looked unsettled. Look, I'm not proud of what I've been part of. But I thought you should know. He's not just cheating. He's keeping receipts. Literal ones. Receipts. She nodded. Texts. Emails. Screenshots of arguments. Stuff he could use if he wanted to make her look bad. I saw him organizing them one night on his laptop. He said it was just in case she ever tried to screw him over. A chill went down my spine. Do you know where he keeps them? She sipped her coffee. Some are on his laptop. Some. I think he keeps on a backup drive in his desk. Why? Because if I can get those, I said, I can prove what kind of person he is, without dragging Jess's business into it. Laura raised an eyebrow. And you think he's just going to hand them over? No, I said. I think I'm going to have to take them. She stared at me for a long moment, then leaned in. If you're serious, I might be able to help. But you didn't hear that from me. We sat there for another 20 minutes, hashing out vague details without saying too much in public. She wouldn't give me his exact schedule, but she did let slip that he usually worked late on Tuesdays and left his home office unlocked. By the time I left the brew loft, my coffee was cold and my brain was buzzing, not just from caffeine. I now had an option. A reckless, probably terrible option. But before I could even decide whether to take it, my phone buzzed. It was Jess. We need to talk. Now. When I asked what it was about, she just replied, I know what you've been doing. I sat in my car outside the coffee shop for a solid 5 minutes, staring at Jess's text. Her words had that familiar sting, not just because of what they said, but because of how she said them. No, hey. No, can we talk? Just a blunt, accusatory statement that made it sound like she'd already convicted me of something in her head. I typed back, what exactly do you think I've been doing? Her reply came instantly. Don't play dumb. I'm not in the mood. I could feel my pulse climbing. I thought about ignoring her, driving home, and pretending I'd never seen the messages. But the longer I sat there, the more I knew she'd just show up at my apartment or, worse, rope Mom into staging some kind of family intervention. So I texted, I'm on my way. When I pulled up to her apartment, the first thing I noticed was that her car was in the driveway, but so was Ben's. My stomach dropped. This was about to be a 2-against-1 situation. I almost backed out right there. I could have just kept driving, maybe gone to Tasha's place and drowned myself in bad TV until Tuesday came around and I could put Laura's plan in motion. But no, if I was going to do this, I needed to know exactly what Jess thought she knew. The moment I knocked, Jess opened the door. She didn't say hello. Her arms were crossed so tightly I half expected her to sprain something. Ben was leaning against the kitchen counter behind her, looking like a man who'd just won a poker hand with a bluff. Come in, Jess said flatly. I stepped inside, my eyes darting between them. All right, let's hear it. Jess didn't waste time. Ben told me you met with her this morning. I felt my jaw tighten. Who's her? Don't insult me. Jess snapped. You know exactly who. Laura. He saw her post something from that coffee shop you like, and then he remembered you mentioned it once. He connected the dots. I shot Ben a look. He was watching me with that same smug calm, as if this was all going exactly the way he'd planned. Yeah, I said slowly. I met with her. Because unlike you, Jess, I don't want to spend the rest of my life pretending he's someone he's not. Jess's face flushed. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think I do, I said, stepping further into the kitchen. I know he's been cheating. I know he's been stringing Laura along for months. And I know, Ben cut in smoothly, you don't know anything. You're just desperate to feel important in a story that's not yours. I turned back to Jess. Did you even ask him? Did you look at the evidence before you decided on the bad guy? Jess's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't need to. I already told you. We've moved past worse. This is just you trying to ruin the wedding because you can't stand seeing me happy. The words hit harder than I wanted them to. Jess, I'm trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. She shook her head. No, you're trying to save yourself from being irrelevant. You can't stand that. For once, the spotlight isn't on you. I let out a short, bitter laugh. The spotlight has never been on me. You've been the golden child since we were kids. You think I want the spotlight now? No. I want you to stop marrying men who will break you. Ben's voice dropped low, almost a purr. Careful, or she might start telling me all your secrets. Jess's eyes flickered at that. A quick flash of something between fear and shame. That's when I knew he'd been hinting at her cheating to me on purpose, trying to make her feel just as trapped as she really was. I could have dropped the rooftop photo right there. I could have shoved my phone in her face and let her see exactly what kind of man she was defending. But I didn't. Because if she saw it now, she'd still run to him, and he'd spin it until I was the villain again. Instead, I took a slow breath and said, fine. If you want to believe him over me, go ahead. But when it all falls apart, Remember who tried to warn you. I turned to leave. Jess called after me. Don't bother showing up to the bridal shower next weekend. I didn't answer. By the time I got back to my car, my hands were shaking so badly I had to sit there for a minute before I could even put the key in the ignition. The whole confrontation had been a trap. Ben wanted me cornered so he could paint me as the bitter, jealous sister in front of her. And it had worked. But what he didn't know was that Laura had given me exactly what I needed, a window of opportunity. Tuesday night. Home office. Unlocked desk. The thought of breaking into his place, even just to snoop, made my stomach churn. I wasn't that kind of person. I didn't cross lines like that. But then again, I'd never had someone like Ben in my life before, either. Over the weekend, I kept my head down. I ignored the group chat where bridesmaids gossiped about the fallout and avoided calls from Mom, who was clearly trying to stay neutral but failing. I spent most of my time at home, pretending to watch TV while running through every possible scenario for Tuesday night. Laura had been vague for a reason. She didn't want to get too involved. But she had mentioned that he left for the gym around 6:30 p.m. on Tuesdays and usually didn't get back until after 8 o'clock. That gave me a window, if I was bold enough to take it. By Monday night, I'd made up my mind. I texted Laura. Still good for tomorrow? Her reply came almost instantly. Yes. I'll make sure he's gone by 6:30. You'll have an hour, maybe more. Be careful. When Tuesday came, my nerves were on fire all day. I could barely focus at work. My hands were clammy, my heart was pounding, and every part of me kept screaming, this is a terrible idea. But by 6:20 p.m., I was parked 2 blocks from Ben's place, waiting for Laura's text. At 6:33, it came. He's gone. Doors unlocked. Go. I slipped out of my car, the cool evening air doing nothing to calm me. My legs felt like lead as I walked up the street, glancing over my shoulder every few seconds. When I reached his front door, I hesitated for a heartbeat, my hand hovering over the knob. Then I took a deep breath, turned it, and stepped inside. The closet smelled like dry cardboard and the lemon cleaner people use when they want you to think nothing messy ever happens in a room. I pressed myself against a stack of boxes that said winter in thick black marker and tried to become air. My breath sounded too loud in my own ears. I counted 1, 2, like counting could make me invisible. The office door creaked wider. Footsteps crossed the threshold, measured, unhurried. He wasn't tiptoeing. He didn't think anyone was here. Keys clinked against wood. A soft thud, like a phone set face down. The chair whispered against the rug as it rolled back, and then that subtle musical chime of a laptop waking up. I pictured the glow filling the room, the screen reflecting in his eyes. I pictured my tote bag in the dark with me, its strap digging into my shoulder. Don't move. Don't move. Don't even blink too hard. For a few seconds, all I heard were keystrokes, deliberate, evenly spaced. Then a sigh. Paper rustled. A drawer slid open. Another pause. Where did I put that stupid thing? He muttered, so faint I barely caught it. I stared at the thin line of light under the closet door like it could answer me. He pulled another drawer. I knew which one. The top, where the pins were, where the little black USB drive had been. My fingers curled tighter around the tote. He kept going. Second drawer. Folders. The one labeled Jess. I pictured the manila spine and how it would look if he scanned across, and noticed a gap. I'd shoved it back quick in my panic. No, I hadn't. I'd taken it. I swallowed hard. The chair rolled again. He stood. A few slow steps. The cabinet. A metallic tick, key sliding into a lock. The cabinet door peeled open. He pulled something out, set it down, and flipped through. Paper snapping lightly as it turned. Okay, he breathed, almost cheerful. There you are. I forced myself to inhale into my ribs so my chest wouldn't rise too much. He was close enough that if I sneezed, he'd hear the vibration of my bones. His phone buzzed. He put it on speaker. I recognized the empty hand sound of someone who wants to multitask. Yeah, he said. A male voice came tinny into the room. You back already? Gym was slammed, Ben said. And someone has to make sure we're not exposed. Exposed how? A beat of silence. A drawer shut. The chair rolled back again. Her sister, he said. She's been poking around. Met with Laura this morning. My stomach clenched so hard I thought it might fold in half. The closet suddenly felt 2 sizes smaller. The other man, older, maybe, with that raspy tone of someone who lives on coffee, gave a low laugh. Thought you cut Laura loose. I did, Ben said. But she doesn't know how to stay cut. And Jess's sister, she's looking for anything she can twist. I'll handle it. How? The man asked. Ben's smile was so audible I could see it in my head. Paper. The only thing that matters. Jess signs the post-nup this week. Ironclad infidelity clause, moral turpitude, conduct unbecoming. The works. And once we're married, the family gift transfers through me. If she bolts later, I keep the investment. If she strays again, I keep everything. The man whistled. Cold. Clean. Ben corrected. The attorney said the original prenup is sloppier than I like. Her dad's friend whipped it together to be fair. The way he said the word made my neck prickle. So we do a little update, tailored to our exact situation. Bring up the history. Gently. Remind her what forgiveness looks like. Get her signature in front of a notary. She'll sign. She hates public mess. My ribs wanted to explode. Post-nup. A second trap, set with nicer paper. He wasn't just planning to marry her. He was planning to own the fallout. The way he said family gift made something click too. Mom had mentioned a contribution for the house down payment as their wedding gift. $30,000, maybe more. He wanted it routed through him, not the both of them. I could see it like a diagram. Boxes and arrows and Jess's name shrinking to fine print. And the sister? The voice asked. Discredit her before she ever opens her mouth, Ben said easily. She's impulsive when she thinks she's protecting someone. All I need is one bad move on her part. Then I show what I have. He tapped something. Paper, I imagined. The Jess folder. The envelope with my photos. What do you have, exactly? The other man asked. No surprises. Enough to tell a story, Ben said. Screenshots, timestamps, a few candid shots. She's been following me. Makes her look obsessed. If I have to, I'll bring up her job. HR loves the word harassment. I squeezed my eyes shut so hard it hurt. He wasn't just saving dirt on Jess. He had a whole narrative for me. The photo from the grocery store wasn't just a lucky catch. It was a puzzle piece he was already fitting into a picture. The other man shifted his tone, almost bored. You sure you want to marry into this? Sounds like a lot of work. Ben laughed softly. It's an investment. Jess is useful. She wants the picture. The ring, the house, the Instagram. She'll fight to keep it looking perfect. And her parents? Old school. They'll prioritize stability over truth every time. A pause. Plus, she's not a burden. Well, you've met her. She lights up a room. That plays well. The word plays landed like a tack in my skin. He talked about my sister like a product with good packaging. Fine, the man said. Attorney meeting is Thursday. I'll send the revised language tonight. Make sure the debt clause is in there, Ben added. I don't want her dragging my credit down if she decides to act out. I could feel my jaw lock. Jess had no significant debt. She'd worked like a maniac to keep her credit immaculate. That clause was a threat on paper, an excuse to isolate finances so he could keep control. They wrapped up quickly. Logistics, a reminder to forward something, an offhand joke about ordering better champagne for the rehearsal dinner because appearances are half the battle. The call ended with a cheerful talk soon, like they'd been discussing a new patio set. Silence filled the room again. Then the soft squeak of the cabinet closing. The chair rolled. He stood. For a second, I let myself think he'd leave. That he'd go to the kitchen, pour a drink, call someone else to gloat, and I could slip out and vanish. My heart tried to sprint ahead of me. Instead, he drifted toward the closet. I couldn't see him, but I felt his presence shift the air. He wasn't walking with purpose, more like he was pacing, thinking. His knuckles brushed the closet door, the wood vibrated against my shoulder. He paused there. My fingers went numb around the tote strap. People make things so hard for themselves, he murmured to no one. He moved away. Another breath. I swallowed the sound. He took a few steps toward the desk again, and that's when my phone, traitor that it is, buzzed once in my back pocket. Not loud, just a small, bee-trapped underglass vibration. But in the quiet, it sounded like a dropped cymbal. I froze. The vibration ended. He went still. Another beat of silence. Then the floor whispered under his shoes as he turned. 2 steps. 3. I pinched the side button on my phone through my jeans to kill the screen. If it buzzed again, it might light up. The closet door had a sliver on one side where light could slip through. My head filled with the image of pale blue spilling across the carpet, pointing at me like a spotlight. He stopped inches from the door. I could hear his breath now, steady, curious, not yet suspicious, but aware. He put his hand on the knob. The metal clicked as it shifted over the latch. At that exact second, the front doorbell rang. The sound jolted through the house like a fire alarm. He stayed where he was, hand still on the knob. The doorbell rang again, shorter, impatient. Ben let go. He exhaled, annoyed, and strode out. 1 second, he called, voice already slipping into polite mode. As soon as he cleared the office doorway, I slid the closet door open a 1/4 inch and pressed my eye to the gap. From this angle, I could see his shoulder moving through the entryway, the top of his head dipping as he glanced through the peephole. He opened the door a crack. "Yeah, I have a delivery for Benjamin Hale," a woman's voice said. Bright, neutral, scripted. Signature required. Laura. It had to be. My relief flashed hot, and then cold. I hadn't asked her to come. I'd only texted that he was back early. She'd filled in the rest. Ben's suspicion sharpened. From who? She didn't hesitate. Holman and Reese. Legal courier. I just need a signature, sir. I could hear paper crinkle. I pictured her in some borrowed blazer with a clipboard. Ben swore under his breath, muffled, irritated, and the door opened wider. Fine. Their voices moved slightly to the left, like she'd offered the clipboard, so he had to step out to angle his signature. His pen scratched. There. What is it? I don't actually know, she said in that monotone workers use when they've been told to not engage. Have a good night. The door shut. His footsteps came back fast. I didn't have time to think. I slipped out of the closet, heart in my mouth, and almost ran my shin into the desk. The laptop sat there, open now, the screensaver a geometric shape bouncing lazily. A sticky note peeked from under the keyboard, a single word and 4 numbers. Mariner 42. I didn't know if it was a decoy or the Wi-Fi, or, if I was lucky, the password he'd gotten lazy about changing. I tapped the spacebar. The login screen waited. I typed, Mariner 42. The desktop bloomed open like a held breath. Adrenaline made my fingers slick. I plugged the USB I'd stolen into the port with a tremble. If I could clone anything, drag and drop, copy his folders, I might have enough to show Jess without dragging her worst moment into it. I opened the Documents folder. Inside, subfolders labeled with mundane names. Then one that made my skin go cold. Insurance. Another, Dispute Kit. Another, J_safeguard. A floorboard popped in the entryway. He was done with the door. I clicked J_safeguard. Inside were PDFs, timeline. PDF, incident_repairs. PDF, notes_council. Docs. The corner of my vision pulsed with the file copy progress bar as I dragged the whole folder to the USB. 2 minutes. 90 seconds. 60. It felt like years. He came back down the hall. My throat tightened. I scanned the pad of sticky notes for anything else, password hints, a safe combo, but my vision tunneled around the progress bar. 30 seconds. I opened Dispute Kit on impulse. Inside, a template email to HR about inappropriate attention from a family member. Draft. To whom it may concern, I regret to bring this to your attention, but my fiancé's sister has been following me to my workplace and sending messages that make me uncomfortable. Space is ready to insert my name, my job title. Screenshots queued up in subfolders. My Instagram geotags, that photo of me at the coffee shop with Tasha, zoomed in like a crime scene. 20 seconds. He paused in the next room. The clink of glass, a drink being poured. I exhaled and immediately hated myself for believing I was safe. 15. I clicked the desktop, a folder called Home. Inside, an image of a house listing, the one Jess had sent months ago. English tutor, Ivy on brick, the caption Our Dream. Next to it, a spreadsheet called Budget, Reality. XLSX. I didn't open it. My eyes skated to a PDF named PostNup, Draft V3. PDF. 10. I double-clicked the PostNup. It opened to a clean legal document with numbered sections and those polite killer words, whereas, and hereinafter, and the parties agree. I snapped photos with my phone as the copy bar ticked down. Clause 12. Infidelity, defined broadly. Emotional intimacy, inappropriate messaging, any conduct that may reasonably be construed as a betrayal of trust. Clause 14. Family contribution, funds recognized as sole stewardship, of husband with discretionary oversight for the benefit of the marital household. Clause 21. Confidentiality. Party shall not disclose any disputes to family without spousal consent. 5 seconds. A floorboard groaned. Closer. The amber clink had ended. 3. The copy completed. I yanked the USB. The laptop hiccuped once. The mouse cursor spun. The sound of his footsteps turned down the hallway, toward me. I stuffed the USB into my tote's small pocket, dropped my phone in after it, and eased the laptop lid down until the magnet caught, but didn't let it click. I backed up, eyes scanning for anything I'd left askew. A pen, a folder edge, a chair angle. The closet door was still open a hair. I slid toward it, then realized if I shut myself back in, I might trap myself. He reached the office doorway. I dove behind the door itself, pressing my back into the wall and pulling the edge of the door against me so it looked closed from his angle. It was the only cover I had. If he came even a step inside and looked left, he'd see me. He did. He stepped in. He stood there, surveying. His fingers tapped the desk twice. He moved to the cabinet and touched the lock, as if making sure he'd closed it. He frowned. Something was off. Maybe the way the folders sat, a millimeter misaligned. I felt a thread of panic start to unspool in my chest. He leaned over the desktop, touched the laptop. The screen stayed dark. He let it be. He went to the closet next, nudged it with 2 fingers, saw it mostly shut, and, thank every lucky star that has ever existed, lost interest. He pivoted, eyes scanning the rug, the bookshelf, the corners that shadows love. For one miraculous second, I thought he was leaving. Then his gaze dropped to the floor beside the closet. The smallest thing, no bigger than my thumbnail. A paperclip, bent. I'd left it on the rug when I jimmied the cabinet. He bent, picked it up, turned it over in the light. He straightened slowly. The air in the room changed, like weather turning. He didn't rush. He just recalibrated. His smile returned, but tighter now, a stage smile in a mirror. All right, he said to the empty room. Let's not play hide and seek. He walked back to the desk and opened the top drawer again. He moved a pen, set it down, moved it back the way he preferred. He opened the second drawer, thumbed the edges of the folders, inventory moving behind his eyes. He shut it. He drifted toward the closet again, stopped, turned on his heel, as if on a thought, and went to the bookcase. The office was so silent that when my phone, deep in my tote, buried under the folder, flashed to wake from some background notification, I saw the faintest change in light where the door didn't quite kiss the frame. The barest suggestion of a glow on his shirt cuff. I prayed he didn't. He touched the spine of a fake law book, the one that hit a hollow center. He slid it off. Empty. He replaced it, notably calmer. The calm of someone with time. He checked his watch. 7:02. He said aloud, like he was leaving a breadcrumb for a later story. Plenty of time. He moved toward the door. If he walked out, I could slip left, slide along the wall, and bolt. My calves were already rehearsing it. Every muscle in me was a coiled thing ready to snap. He took one step, then another, then stopped. He tipped his head, listening. It took me a second to realize what he'd heard, the faintest hum. Not a phone, something else. The laptop fan had spun up for a brief moment under the closed lid, warming from the file copy, and then down again. It was a nothing sound. If you weren't a person who lived on details. He turned back to the desk. He touched the lid, lifted it an inch. The screen stayed dark, but he rested his hand there a second longer than he needed to. His eyes did one more sweep of the room. Slow, patient. The way you look when you know you're not alone, but you haven't decided how to enjoy the reveal yet. Then he reached out, so casual it was theatrical, and took the edge of the closet door between his fingers. The door moved. A half inch, then another half. The crack widened. The light bent in a narrow trapezoid across the rug. My tote's canvas scraped the baseboard the tiniest squeak. He heard it. He smiled, small and ruthless. Found you, he said softly, and began to pull. And in that exact heartbeat, like a cruel joke, the phone in my tote lit up in full brightness, the screen blazing with an incoming call, the name pulsing bold on the display, so bright it painted the inside of the closet in blue-white stripes that bled through the widening gap. Jess. Her face photo filled the screen. The ringtone burst alive, loud, cheerful, unmistakable. In the choking quiet, in his office, inches from his hand, My sister's name sang out like an alarm. Ben's head snapped toward the glow. His eyes locked on the light pouring through the gap. His hand tightened on the closet door, knuckles blanching. The ringtone kept chiming, fearless and relentless. He looked straight at the sliver of space where I stood pinned to the wall, breath caught, nowhere to go, his voice low and almost amused as he whispered, "Well, well." The door kept opening. "Well, well," Ben said, fingers whitening on the closet door. I didn't think. I lunged for my tote, hit accept with the heel of my hand, and slammed speaker. "Jess," I blurted, voice shaking. "Don't hang up." Silence on the line for one beat, two. Then her voice, small and distant. "Where are you?" Ben's eyes flicked to the glowing screen, to her name pulsing bright as a lighthouse. He smiled without humor. "Put that down." "Jess," I said louder now, "I'm at Ben's. He has a folder on you, printed texts, screenshots. He's building a case. And there's a post-nup draft with a clause about your parents' gift going under his control." He lunged. I yanked back. We collided, my shoulder cracking the door frame. Pain shot down my arm. The tote strap burned across my palm. The phone slid to the floor, skittered under the desk, screen still blasting my sister's name, and the little green waveform dancing with our breath. "What post-nup?" Jess's voice came tinny, threaded with panic. Ben froze for half a second, just long enough to show me the calculation behind his eyes. Then he pitched his tone into something warm, practiced. "Jess, sweetheart, this is not." "Don't call me that," she said. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I heard steel. "What post-nup?" He went to step around me, toward the desk. I put myself between him and the phone on instinct, and he stopped, jaw working. "Something for both our protection," he said carefully. "We talked about updating things. It's standard." "You never told me," she said. "And you never told me you were stockpiling my messages." I grabbed the tote, swung it up and over my shoulder. "Jess, I have copies," I said. "On a drive. And photos of the draft. Clause 14, family contribution under sole stewardship of husband. Clause 12, infidelity defined so wide that breathing wrong counts." "Give me the phone," Ben said softly. "Now." "No," I said just as softly. From the street, a car door slammed. More footsteps than one. For a split, 6 seconds I thought he'd called someone else. The man from the phone, the attorney, I didn't know. But then Jess said, closer now, not tinny at all. "Open the door." Ben's gaze cut to the hallway. Back to me. I saw it then, the little flicker that meant the performance was switching stages. He straightened his sleeves, turned on that impeccable posture, and walked out to the entry like a host greeting late guests. I didn't hesitate. I scooped the phone from under the desk, grabbed the manila folder labeled Jess, and moved. My legs felt like they belonged to someone braver than me. By the time I reached the hall, Jess was already inside, hair pulled into a low knot, face bare of makeup, looking more like my little sister than a bride. Mom was behind her, cheeks flushed, clutching her purse like it might float her through this. "What is going on?" Mom asked, eyes darting between us. Ben gave her the version where I had broken in, where he'd caught me snooping, where everything he'd collected was for his protection, because boundaries had been crossed. His voice was gentle, reasonable, just the right shade of hurt. If I hadn't just seen the files, I might have believed him. I put the folder in Jess's hands. "Look." She opened it. The first printouts were tame, text bubbles about dinner, a disagreement over a late night. Then deeper, screenshots of her low moments, taken out of context, highlighted with sticky notes. And, tucked in the back, the envelope. Her breath hitched when she pulled out the photos. Me leaving work, me at the cafe, me hiding at the grocery store. "He's been watching me," I said softly, because that part was mine. Ben barely glanced. "I documented incidents for my records. I'm advised to keep notes. Your sister has been following me. It's not safe." Mom swallowed, eyes round. "Is that true?" I looked at her. "I followed him once. After I saw him with Laura. Because Jess is about to promise her life to a man who's making a legal kit to win the breakup he's already planning." Jess's fingers found the crease of one page and dug in. "Laura, I ended it," Ben said quickly. "We were on a break. It was a mistake." "A mistake you organized in folders," I said. Jess lifted her head. Her eyes met his, searching, then moving to the desk, where the laptop's lid still sat not quite flush. Show me the post-nup. Jessica, he began, tone shifting to soothing and scold all at once. This is not a conversation we should have with. Show me, she repeated, or I'm leaving. For a second, he didn't move. Then he did, casual, unbothered, like compliance was generosity. He opened the laptop, typed, pulled up the PDF. He turned the screen a little, not enough for me, just enough for her. She didn't touch the chair. She bent over the edge of the desk and scanned. I watched her face as the clauses slid past her eyes. She stopped at 14, and something in her mouth went hard. My parents' gift, she said. You wanted it in your name. For tax, he said quickly. For efficiency. So we can. So you can leave with it, she said, almost curious, like she was testing the word in her mouth. And the infidelity clause that turns any emotion into a crime. So you can keep the house and the furniture and my work bonus because I had a mistake 2 years ago. Her hand shook. She steadied it on the desk. You told me you forgave me. I did, he said. He even looked a little wounded. This is about structure. And this folder? She lifted it, let its weight sit in her palms. Is this structure? He smiled the gentle smile he uses on waiters and mom. Sweetheart, do not call me that, she said, and the word cracked like ice. She turned to me. You broke into his house. I did, I said. I was wrong to do it that way. I was scared that if I came to you empty-handed, he'd sell you a story I couldn't unsell. I was also scared that if I said everything, I'd expose your mistake, and that isn't my right. So I took this. I took what was his, because what is his is you. In a file. Mom made a small sound, some sad little bird of a noise. Jess didn't cry. She didn't yell. She set the folder down with weird care, as if it might break. She reached for her left hand, slid the ring once around her finger, and then pulled it off. The metal clicked against the desk. Ben stared at it like it had spoken. You're being emotional, he said finally, evenly, the way you say a weather report. You'll regret a dramatic reaction. I've been reacting dramatically my whole life, Jess said quietly. I'm done. I'm making a decision. He looked past her to me. That cold smile again. You realize she trespassed. There are consequences. I'm within my rights to. Call the police, Jess said without looking at him. Tell them about the folder with my name on it, and the one called, what did you call it? She glanced at the desktop. J_safeguard. It's a protective. Tell them, she said, voice steady. Tell them you were going to have me sign a document you hid behind a trust me smile. See how that plays in front of my mother. She finally turned to him fully. Tell them you invited me to spend my life trying not to make you look bad on paper. We all stood there in the weird, humming quiet afterward. Somewhere a compressor kicked on. Outside, a car drove past. A child laughed. The kind of normal sounds you want to stuff into your pockets and carry with you when things go sideways. Ben picked up the ring. He didn't pocket it. He just held it in his palm like a coin. You'll be back, he said. Not a threat, an assumption. Jess looked at him like she was meeting him for the first time. No, she said. I won't. We left. The air outside felt raw and honest. Mom didn't talk until we were in her car, parked 2 blocks away. Then she put both hands on the steering wheel and bowed her head. I am angry at both of you, she said. At him most of all. At you for putting yourself in danger and making me imagine you in a closet. She shuddered. But I am also very grateful you showed us before this became our whole life. Jess exhaled like she'd been underwater and had finally found the surface. I'm calling the venue, she said, voice small again, all the steel spent. I'm calling everyone. The next week was a storm. Deposits lost. Invitations retracted. Bridesmaids' chat dissolved into 100 small fires and then ash. Dad took a long, quiet walk that lasted until dark. Mom switched between comforting Jess and telling me in the same breath that breaking into a house is not a skill we keep in the family toolkit. Laura texted me once. I'm sorry. I'll tell anyone who needs to hear it. Then she disappeared again, which felt like the best and kindest thing she could do. Ben did not call the police. He sent Jess 2 emails, calm, measured, implying he could escalate, implying her reputation would be safer if they handled this privately. She did not reply. Our uncle, who is a lawyer in the kind way, wrote back instead, a perfect paragraph about harassment, data misuse, and the risks of dragging his own documents into discovery. The email stopped. I told Jess, a week later, that I wasn't her maid of honor anymore, even if she rescheduled someday. She laughed, with her face in her hands. That wet, hopeless laugh people do when they're exhausted. You were never going to be, she said, voice muffled. You were always going to be my sister. Then she reached for my fingers and squeezed them like she was checking I was real. So here I am, on the internet, asking the question I've been chewing on since the morning my phone blew up with all caps texts. I told my sister I wouldn't be her maid of honor anymore. I also broke into her fiancé's house to get proof he was manipulating her and trying to lock down her life on paper. I crossed a line because every polite line I'd tried before just bounced off his smile. My family is split. Most are relieved. Some think I went too far and that I forced the breakup by making everything public when we could have worked through it. Jess says she's grateful. Ben says I'm obsessive and dangerous.